Hello, podcast listener. Put on your spectacles, grab yourself a pocket protector. We're going to take a deep, unexpected dive into the funness that is comic book movies. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World and grab yourself a pencil. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
Tucker, I had a long thought about this the other day, which is the parents in an American Tale are just bad parents. And they lost their kid on a ship.
Because they're seeking freedom from oppression. That makes them bad parents.
Well, it makes them bad parents because they lose their son. And nobody else loses their son.
I'm trying to remember now. It's this is weird because this is actually one of my favorite movies. And I'm blanking on specifically the separation scene. Is it when they're coming over?
Yeah.
In a storm?
There's a storm and Fievel ends up in a bottle.
That's right.
And he goes overboard and the rest of the family. Right. And so technically, Fievel never goes through Ellis Island. So I don't think that he can get citizenship. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news for this epic tale, but if you went to look, there's no record of him. In fact, the Mouskowitz family, when they're going across, Papa, they're like, "How many?" And he goes, 5. And she goes, "Papa," and he goes, 4. And
that's a movie that, even though it's an animated film, it has this intrinsic, I don't know, this texture to it that is from a time and place in the history of animation, where an animated movie is never going to look or feel like that one ever again.
Yeah, Don Bluth, what he pushed his animators to do was amazing. Same thing goes for Land Before Time.
Yes.
I mean, Rockadoodle, Anastasia, there's a reason why the movies that he made they're different. And he started with Disney. Mm-hmm. And so he just knew that there was more. It's funny because he split from Disney at a time when Disney was really kind of phoning it in with their animated features. And he's like, no, there's more to this. There's more to this. And I think for a while, the thought was that he was going to become the head of animation at Disney. And when he was more or less looked over, he's like, nope, I'm gone.
It's such a shame when Disney, in that instance, who has all of the resources, can make any art that they want, decides to not push the boundaries because they're going to go for something that's a bit more commercially safe, even though they're already making money.
Oh, you know what? I agree wholeheartedly. And that actually brings me into one of the things I want to talk about today, which is I watched the new Wallace and Gromit movie.
Uh-huh.
And for those of you who might be listening and don't know, Wallace and Gromit started in 1993 with a short film called The Wrong Trousers. And it's about a British inventor and his dog. And the dog is like a Marcel Marceau character who doesn't speak and actually doesn't even have a mouth. I don't think Wallace or Gromit never even has an open mouth or anything like that, which is amazing.
I think I think you're right, but I might be mixing him up with other stop motion dogs I've seen. But he is Wallace and Gromit is timeless. It
really is.
It's absolutely timeless comedy, writing, filmmaking, animation, classics. 5 out of 5 stars. Chef's kiss. What other superlatives I can say? I don't quite know. I need to see this latest film because I am a Wrong Trousers lover, as I am the where they go to the moon. Yep. I'm trying to remember the name of that one. Where they go to the moon to have cheese and crackers.
Yep, because Wallace is obsessed with cheese.
And it looks delicious. Like when they eat cheese and crackers, it looks so good.
So interesting. So, this movie that just came out, Vengeance Most Foul, is a sequel to The Wrong Trousers.
Okay.
So, and I don't know, has there ever been a full length sequel to a short film? I'm not sure. This might be a first.
There's been short films that have been remade into feature films.
Yep.
But I can't think of a single feature-length movie that was a direct sequel to a short film. Yeah, I think you're right.
So the thing I like the most about this is I had read an article when the first Wallace and Gromit feature film, there's 4 shorts, I think, right? The most recent being A Matter of Loaf and Death, about the Bakelite girl. And they're so dang funny. And what they do in this, I think they do so well, and you see it first in The Wrong Trousers, is they have these really intense action sequences. Like in The Wrong Trousers, there's a model train sequence where they're going through the house and they're laying track, and the background is just whizzing by you, and you go like, whoa, this is amazing. But this article I had read when the Curse of the Were-Rabbit had come out was that this reviewer is like, oh, you can see all the handprints and like fingerprints on these like plasticine models. And the people at Aardman said, yeah, because we need you to know that they're being made by a real human being.
Yeah.
And this is a sign that this is true art, and it's not polished, and it's not perfect, and it's not meant to be. It's supposed to feel like you can reach out and touch these things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, like, I've got so much respect for that. It's just insane.
I'm looking at the Wallace and Gromit website right now at their list of films, and it looks like they have them. I think they may have them in chronological order of when they were made. And if that's true, then they have it listed then as Grand Day Out as the first one.
Oh, really? I thought Wrong Trousers was the first one, but maybe then Grand Day Out is where they go to the moon, right?
Is where they go to the moon. But that's if this order I'm seeing is it looks like it is. But if not, then not. Unless a few of these were sort of made simultaneously, and then they're kind of together. But we have A Grand Day Out, then The Wrong Trousers, then A Close Shave, then we have Cracking Contraptions, and then Curse of the Were-Rabbit, A Matter of Loaf and Death, World of Invention, and then Vengeance Most Foul. So I think that's 7. 3, 4,
there's some of those
5,
I've never heard, like
6,
Cracking Inventions.
That's 8.
Oh, I see. Like
there's more to the Wallace and Gromit library than I was aware of too.
That's amazing. It's too bad though, because I considered myself a pretty good fan of this to not know that there's stuff like. Because there's other Aardman animation too out there that I also appreciate. I think Chicken Run is a perfect movie. Like, it is a perfect movie.
The nice thing about all these being short films until the end here is that you could just have a Wallace and Gromit day and watch the totality of their films and not feel like you just ran a marathon.
Oh yeah, that sounds wonderful, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. You'd have to have cheese and crackers at some point.
Oh, and you'd probably have to have some tea.
Yep, you have to do it English style.
I'm trying to think. There's other things that they're like in they also do a lot of stuff like with vegetables and Curse of the Were-Rabbit, and I don't know why, but I wanted to eat carrots while I watched it, probably because there's a character who's a rabbit who's constantly wanting to eat carrots.
Whenever I would watch Bugs Bunny eat a carrot, I always thought, oh, okay, carrots look delicious. And then I would bite into one as a kid and be like, this is gross.
This is awful.
Not what yeah. Cartoons make food look tastier than it actually is. Like turkey legs.
Well, bite your tongue, because turkey legs are amazing.
I'm not saying you're right. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to say that. But you can
never eat it like they do in like a movie set like in medieval England or something like that.
Where it looks just like a ball of pure meat, no fat or gristle,
Did you ever watch any of the old Alfred Hitchcock Presents TV series?
I've seen a few here or there.
One of my favorites is it's a couple, and it's set in the 1950s, and the woman is a housewife, and she's very pregnant, and she's making a leg of lamb for dinner, which is actually like a leg of lamb.
Uh-huh.
And the husband comes home and he goes, I need to talk to you. And he goes, I'm leaving you. I fall in love with a younger woman, and you're just, I don't love you anymore, and you're gross because you're pregnant. And she takes this leg of lamb and beats him to death.
Nice.
And this is all like in the first like 3 minutes of the episode.
Nice.
And so she stops and she goes and she puts the leg, because it's frozen, right? So she stops and she puts the leg of lamb in the oven, and she takes off her apron and hangs it up. And then she goes to the supermarket and she shops and she's buying like canned goods, and she's chatting with someone like, oh, hello, oh, yes, I'm going to help with the bake sale. And just this back and forth. And then she gets home and she sees her husband like slumped over dead. And she's like, oh my God, Terry. And she calls the police, and the police come over, and she explains how when she got home, he was dead. And they're like, all right, well, we're looking for like some kind of a blunt instrument and stuff like that. And it's almost like she doesn't even realize that she was the one who had done this.
Uh-huh.
And so they're kind of searching the house, and they're searching around looking for any kind of suspects or a sign of a break-in or anything like that. And the episode ends with her being like, here, like, I can't eat all of this myself. And she serves like these 9 cops a full dinner with the leg of lamb. And I watched that like back in the day when Nick at Night was airing stuff like that. And Nick at Night was interesting. So Nickelodeon, a television station meant for children, realized that like, oh, kids go to bed at like 8 o'clock, and there's no point in airing cartoons, because this is an era where they're like, oh yeah, adults don't like cartoons, which was then proven wrong like 2 decades later. But they decided, why not take some of these old shows, these black and white shows that cost next to nothing, and we'll rerun them at night. We'll call it Nick at Night, and Nick at Night will be meant for adults kind of wanting to relive a little bit of nostalgia. So they had the Andy Griffith Show. They had Alfred Hitchcock Presents. I'm trying to think of what else.
They had Dragnet, I Dream of Jeannie.
Yeah. I mean, like, it was kind of it was a real smattering of programming.
And that was where I saw they had that, I think we've talked about it on the pod before, the Samantha versus Jeannie marathon, where people could like call in and vote on, in a battle, who are you taking? And then it was just constant Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie for like a couple of days. And I stayed up late to watch it. That's because I was crushing hard on Samantha.
I mean, I crushed hard on Samantha too. There's something about Samantha that I like. Also, it weirds me out because Jeannie always referred to why can't I think of his name? The guy, her beau as master. And that felt real weird. Even like as a little kid, that felt weird, for being like, what can I do for you, master? Be like, ugh, I don't care for this so much. Because it made her feel like property, and that's not okay. Barbara Eden, by the way, just gorgeous and so funny, but I don't think holds a candle when it comes down to how she compares to, and I forget the name of the woman who plays Samantha off the top of my head, but just wonderful. Also, that's also where I started watching Mary Tyler Moore. Do you know the kind of, like, this is back when television shows, like TV comedies, could cause a scandal, and Mary Tyler Moore on a regular basis caused scandal. There was an episode called The Dress where you saw more of Mary than, what was kind of acceptable at the time. And I remember thinking about how, like, reading about it as an adult, being like, this was scandalous. I mean, they have to blur stuff out of regular TV on a regular basis now, but I love that. Also, this is a hard left for me, but guess what 2025 is going to be for JJ?
What?
The year of the pencil.
Okay.
I'm going back to pencils.
Now I'm trying to remember, was last year of the wolf or the shark?
Last year was year of the shark. Year of the wolf was the year prior.
Okay. Year of the pencil. Tell me about it.
So when I was directing Die Hard, they had at Stage West.
The musical, by the way.
Let's be clear. Not a remake.
Not the feature film. Not the feature film starring Bruce Willis.
I mean, I wish at times, but no. Stage West had this cup of pencils for kids because they were rehearsing A Charlie Brown Christmas right before our show would rehearse. And so they had this cup of pencils. And so I started using the pencils. And I was like, God, I like a pencil. Like, there's something different about writing with a pencil. And so I bought on right before the holidays, they had an Amazon Prime Basics, which, by the way, if you're not using Amazon Basics brand, they're awesome. Like, you save so much money, and it's Amazon's in-house brand. They're fantastic. Like, if you're like, oh, I need a new trash can, sure, look at the Rubbermaid one, but then look at the Amazon Basics one, which is the exact same, but like 30% cheaper. So I bought a box of 500 pencils, like the old style number 2 orange with the red tip eraser. And then I bought 5 pencil sharpeners, little plastic jobs. And that's my new thing, is
that's awesome.
Using pencils. Yeah, I'm really liking it. I'm not going to lie. I'm really liking it so far. It's made a big difference at work because I park these little beauties up in my ear and I feel like I'm really a part of it.
It's like you're Perry White.
Yeah, that's how I feel. That's how I feel.
Kent, I need you to get out there.
What do you think of the trailer for the new Superman movie?
I love it.
Yeah.
I am in the fan group that is in love with it because of a couple of things. I as a comic book uber nerd from since I was a little kid, I have never liked any of the incarnations really of Superman I saw except for the Christopher Reeves, because I always kind of felt like everything that came after Christopher Reeves felt like almost like a cynical modern, like, well, we can't do too much Superman. Like, we got to tone it down in some way, or we got to make him dark, or we got to, do X or this so that he'll be acceptable to a modern audience, versus just going, hey, who is Superman in the comics? Who all is present? What's his vibe? Let's just do exactly that. And so I'm really excited to see. I'm excited for the potential of it. Obviously, the movie hasn't come out yet, so I don't know if it's good or not. But I've also been really happy with the work of James Gunn. I loved Peacemaker. I loved which by the way, is actually one of those like more modern day dour takes on it, but he has some ability to infuse it with that base passion that I'm talking about. I think the other thing too is that part of the fan reaction to this one, and I think I'm a part of it, is the trailer did a really good job, in my opinion, of communicating the tone of hope and of looking forward to something and of positivity. And I think it's a rare thing to find in superheroes these days. And it's a much rarer thing to find in the wide world. So I think a lot of us who saw that trailer and liked it, with Krypto the dog, and Krypto Take Me Home and everything else that that was in there, it resonated with us. So I followed the discourse a bit on Reddit of like those who like it and those who don't, and I think it does just come down to personal preference. But I'm in the camp that's excited for it. I was not on board for the Zack Snyder DC universe. I thought it was fine, but I'm looking forward to a Superman that I recognize, that I'm looking at and going, wow, it feels to me like they got the actual Superman to be in this movie. That's awesome. I'm also excited for Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner. He looks absolutely perfect. Guy Gardner is one of the Green Lanterns, and he is an absolute asshole. Like, everyone hates this guy, and he's got like a shitty haircut.
He's got a bowl cut, which makes me instantly be like, ugh, I don't like this guy.
Yeah. And he's supposed to be. He's like, no one likes Guy Gardner. He's a total asshole. And so I'm really excited for the Nathan Fillion version of that. I'm really excited that it's not an origin story, that it starts like a couple years into Superman's career, and like he's already Superman, so we don't gotta do the whole origin story over again. James Gunn has also, I think, is really phenomenal with incorporating CG animal characters into his movies. So Rocket Raccoon and all of the other, animal mutates that you see in Guardians of the Galaxy. And then in Peacemaker, the series, Peacemaker has a pet eagle named Eagly. And I love Eagly. And I think the way they handle Eagly in the show is fantastic. And yeah, you can tell it's CG, but I don't care. It works for me. And so now seeing all of that time, the Weasel, I guess, from Suicide Squad as well, you could technically count. All of that time and development now being put into Krypto makes me really, really excited.
Yeah, is Krypto is it portrayed by his brother in a mocap suit?
I actually don't know. That's a good question. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that he was.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
So here's my take on it. I don't give a crud about Superman anymore because I have seen nothing that interests me at all from major motion pictures. I would say, probably the Christopher Reeves one was the last Superman movie that I found enthralling. I liked Superman and Lois.
The New Adventures of Superman, the TV show.
Yeah. Wasn't there a spin-off even of that they called Superman and Lois?
I mean, it was. I believe the full title of the series was Superman and Lois: The New Adventures of Superman, but I could be wrong about
Superman
that.
twice in the same title. That's crazy.
I think I could be misremembering. I loved that show too.
Right, because that was fun, and also the stakes were lower. That's I think the problem.
And Clark.
Lois and Clark.
The New Adventures of Superman.
There you go. I part of the problem is that every single time you see Superman on the screen, it is a matter of a world ending situation. And that's not fun to me. There's nothing fun about that for the stakes, is always knowing that this is going to happen. And then I will tell you this with Zack Snyder, Man of Steel. I thought Zod should win at the end. I'm like, he's making a more compelling case about how his homeworld was destroyed, and so he's going to terraform because, as he put it, he goes people on our planet are bred for a single purpose, and my single purpose is to ensure that Krypton lives on. And so all he's doing is, essentially coming and taking a people who are, more feeble, like human beings compared to Kryptonians, and he's like, and I'm like, well,
and
yeah,
he's mass murdering them. Yep, you're right.
Yep, but the thing is, he's mass murdering them to ensure that his people survive, and that's his sole purpose, right? And the thing is that you only see he only sees humans the way we see, like ants, right? They're nothing to him. And so, of course, that you're gonna do whatever it takes to keep your people alive. And that's the thing, is I was like, this is not what I want out of. And I also think the portrayal of Superman has always been a little bit dunky. And I also think this is a huge problem. Back in the the 40s, when they started the Superman serials, you could throw a pair of glasses and part some dude's hair, and he was someone entirely different. They have not cast a Superman since who I believe could actually be Clark Kent without people being, hey, hold on here. Hold on for 1 minute. At least with Batman, he covers his face, and so people wouldn't know he's Bruce Wayne. And then he tries to talk like this. So as long as Bruce doesn't get punched in the throat while he's giving a speech, no one's going to know the difference. That being said, I think that I've talked about this on the pod too, but my favorite piece of Superman sort of lore is the graphic novel Red Son that came out, Redson, which is what would have happened if instead of landing in rural Kansas, it's Kal-El, right? That's Superman's real name. Kal-El had landed in communist Kal-El had landed in communist Russia, and was raised to think that is the way that people should be and feel towards other people, and he becomes a symbol for Russia instead of a symbol for the United States. And it is mind-blowing. It is so good. And it really like, because, I also think like the Pa Kent, the guy who's playing Pa Kent, is one of my favorite character actors, and you've seen him in a bunch of stuff, but never really probably known his name. I'm very excited for what they do with him in this.
Yeah, a lot of comments have been made. Positive comments have been made about how the Kent farmstead in the trailer looks like a modern day Midwestern farmstead versus we're always getting like a picturesque,
right,
like
farmhouse with the field in the background, and like it's
versus what you mostly see today, which is like a one level rambler that's almost even a mile away from where the barn might be, or if not a mile away, then not right next to it. And the barn itself does not look like from like the Dust Bowl,
Right. Yeah, it exactly. It looks like a modern farm situation, which is great because I think that was one of the things that stuck it in the back, and that was another reason I didn't like those Zack Snyder ones. Is I never liked Diane Lane as Mrs. Kent. I thought she was just garbage.
There were a lot of moments in Man of Steel where I just wanted to go, "Hey, fuck you for making this storytelling choice." Like Kevin Costner deciding, "Don't save me from this tornado." Like I'm gonna let this tornado take me up. I don't want you saving me so that we can keep your secret, right? Like that whole moment, I just thought, "Fuck you!" Like this is dumb. And Zack Snyder, to come to his defense for a moment, yeah, stylistically. It depends on what you put him on. I thought he was a stylistically great choice for 300. But more often than, his version, his style isn't something I dig, with the exception of when a director is shooting a superhero movie, you're kind of seeing like how they would play with the toys in the toy box. And I think Zack Snyder, when given the reins, actually can have a lot of fun playing with the toys in the toy box. But it's going to be a Zack Snyder version of it. So if you hire Zack Snyder to direct your movies, you're going to get a Zack Snyder version of it. And I really think that Warner Brothers did a shit thing, like trying to turn him into a Marvel movie and then bringing in Joss Whedon and all of that stuff. Like, it's like, yeah, I get if you're like, hey, we don't want to go in this Zack Snyder direction anymore, but you hired that director for his version of it. Just let him do it. But that being said, all of his stuff is about like what feels to me like fake grittiness, like fake darkness, where you literally just desaturate the image. You make everything dark and shadowy. Everyone talks in something like this. And we get all these massive moments that just don't feel earned yet, like Superman being killed by Doomsday. That should be a landmark massive moment. And it comes in basically the second Superman movie that he makes. So yeah, for the most part, I'm ready to be done with the Zack Snyder stuff. I am super stoked to hear that Jason Momoa is now Lobo. He is Lobo. If you look at him and you look at a picture of Lobo, that's Jason Momoa. So that is fantastic. And I guess I'm coming at the now new James Gunn, Peter Safran epic or era of DC with a lot of hope, based on a lot of the things that I've heard Gunn say. Like Gunn, they've greenlit a Clayface movie directed by Mike Flanagan, written and directed by Mike Flanagan. Clayface is a Batman villain, and he's not like a A-tier Batman villain. He's a guy who can change his face with clay, basically. And Mike Flanagan came in and pitched Gunn on a Clayface movie, and Gunn was like, "Oh, that's interesting. We'll write a first draft. Let's see how it is." Flanagan turns around a first draft. It's really good. He turns around a second draft. It's even better. And Gunn goes, "I can't believe that you made me want to make a Clayface movie, but now you did. So, hey, it's greenlit." And someone in the press was asking Gunn, "Okay, so what is your metric? Like what gets you to decide, yes, we're going to go forward with this movie or that movie?" And he said, "We have a rule here at DC and that is that a movie does not get greenlit until the script is done and we know it on paper, like it's done. And Flanagan came in and pitched me a movie, and he got the script done, and so we greenlit it. And I thought, hey, what a novel approach, right? Like,
Yep.
actually knowing the fucking movie you're going to make before you make it. I think that's pretty fantastic. So I'm excited that there's these opportunities for filmmakers to just come in and pitch things to him. And if it's good enough, he's like, holy shit, you made me want to see that movie. Let's make that movie.
I think that, okay, so here's a deep take for you. So DC desperately wants to be Marvel, right? So it wants to have the cinematic universe that is a cash cow. Well, Warner Brothers wants their DC property to be that for them.
Yeah, they want to make money.
Yep. And so unfortunately, they keep messing up over and over and over again. I mean, I could barely get through Aquaman 2, like barely.
I haven't even tried it.
There are bad Marvel movies, but they are few and far between, right? Like they're like, oh, okay, I saw it, and there's some kind of weird payoff later, which I always think is kind of interesting. That they're like, yeah, we know that you spent $10 to see this in the theater, so don't worry, we'll give you something later on.
Yeah, at worst they can get boring or similar to each other, and at that point they kind of operate as episodes in a series. You go, okay, well, yeah, it's fun, but it's not at the level of, say, Civil War or something. But then you get these big payoffs. You're right.
So to me, what they need is their Kevin Feige, right? So they need this person who is sort of the person who's looking at the big whiteboard of all the stuff that's going on and has a controlling interest in what's being made and how it's being made, like finding the right people. And James Gunn is the person that they've put all their eggs in the basket for at Warner Brothers. Previously, it had been Zack Snyder. I think Warner Brothers should focus on picking somebody who is not a filmmaker, who doesn't want to direct one of these things, but someone who can kind of like look at it as an overall and then bring in the right players. Now, that doesn't mean that James Gunn can't have like some say in how things progress forward. I mean, they did the same thing for Joss Whedon, where Joss Whedon had a big say in like, I want to do this as my next, but we have to do X, Y, and Z to get there. I think they need someone who doesn't want to disappear for 4 months and be on set shooting something and having to divide their attentions, because no matter what, they're going to come in with some kind of a bias over the thing that they're making. Now, that's just my little hot take on it.
I see what you're saying. I think there are so many different pathways to making good movies that I don't necessarily feel that I would want that would be the metric I would be looking for if I was, say, who was it? David Zaslav, I think, right, is the CEO of Warner. And so he's the one who hired Gunn and Peter Safran. I think one thing that Kevin Feige has that other executives don't have is a really deep sense of what makes compelling storytelling happen, and being able to manage relationships at a high level with all of these creatives, especially like the big celebrities and stuff like that. And of the players that I see out in Hollywood right now doing this kind of thing, to me, from my standpoint, James Gunn also shows those qualities. He just also happens to be a fantastic director. Now, I think to your point, yeah, like there's always that there's definitely that very, very strong possibility that, well, now everything gets painted with the James Gunn brush, right? And you're not getting fresh takes and stuff like that. But you can also have that. You could argue that that's happened in Marvel to some extent as well. So it really will just come down to the judgment of that person in this case. And I don't know how they exactly divide it, but it's co-heads. It's James Gunn and Peter Safran. James Gunn handles more of the creative side. Peter Safran handles more of the production, like nuts and bolts side. But I would assume there's crossover. That being said, I've never been in a writer's room with these guys, so I have no idea how it pans out. But yeah, I mean, I think there's the fact that they change things up is a sign for hope that it's just not going to be the same Zack Snyder thing over and over again. My biggest hope is that James Gunn untethered as a creative executive over all of these different teams who are going to be making stuff, that they'll be able to create films that do better than Marvel in some ways and gets Marvel to up their game as well, right? Like, the nice thing about a competition like DC and Marvel is they don't really take away from each other, right? Like, oh, we sold this many X-Men tickets, that means they're not going to sell Batman tickets. Isn't really a thing, right? Like, you're either a fan of one or the other. You might compete in opening weekend windows or, things like that. I mean, there's some level of competition, but it's most of their audience base really crosses over. And so if anything, if we can suddenly see like the DC movies now start coming out and they're just doing like compelling storytelling that we haven't seen, or they're upping the game, or they're making it better, and it's getting Marvel to go, hey, where have we calcified in our success now, right? Where are we just doing the same old thing when we could be? So I'm hopeful for the future, but I am also someone who ascribes to the idea that every single time you get a group of people together to make a movie, it could be a good movie, it could be a bad movie. I could have all this,
definitely.
I could have all this hope for Superman, and then I go see it and I'm like, well, fuck. Right? Like, God damn it. And that's happened to me plenty of times where I saw the trailer for a movie and I was like, this looks phenomenal. And then I saw the movie and at best it was a meh. Joker was that for me. I thought the
first Joker,
I thought the movie itself was, it's fine. But the original trailer for it was awesome.
I am a big fan of being surprised by a movie. And the movie, so this is not a comic book movie, but for me, the movie in 2024 was I saw a screener for The Last Showgirl, and it stars Pamela Anderson.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And right off the bat, you go like, oh, Pamela Anderson from Baywatch? Oh, boy. And it's pretty damn good. And like her performance compared to, other female performances of this last year, I wouldn't be surprised if she got an Academy Award nomination.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah. Like, in fact, I'd kind of be a little surprised if she doesn't.
Wow.
It is a tour de force performance, and it's one of those roles where she had to become this age and live the life that she did to be able to portray this character. It's about a woman who, after 30 years in like a Las Vegas showgirl show, the casino that she works for abruptly closes it, and she doesn't have anything else to do. She has no other skills. She can't start in a new show because she's too old, and it's kind of this major crossroads in a person's life. Dave Bautista's in it as well. Jamie Lee Curtis. It was like, oh my God, one of those character study pieces that just is incredible. And I look for that more and more because that's kind of what I for a long time, I wanted the superhero movies. And I was like, why can't Marvel put out 3 a year?
Yeah. I mean, they can. And then when they do, their quality goes down.
Bingo. And the same thing with Pixar, right? Like I was a big fan of Pixar and I loved how they showed their storytelling. And then all of a sudden you got something like The Good Dinosaur and you're like, and then you got Elements and you're like, ugh. And there are these movies that just sort of don't really capture my imagination like the other ones did. And it's too much of a good thing, right? It's the reason why you don't let children eat cotton candy for breakfast. You need to tell them what's good for them. And in some way, Hollywood needs to adhere to that and tell me what's good for me every now and then.
Yeah, I definitely need Hollywood to tell me what's good for me.
Yep. Be like, here you go.
Speaking to your point about character pieces, I mean, I don't know what the movie's going to be, but the Clayface movie could absolutely be something like that.
Yeah.
The background of Clayface, at least from the animated series, which if you've never seen Batman the Animated Series, if you could watch only one episode, I would watch the one with Clayface. I think it's just from season 1, where he's an actor, he's a Hollywood actor, he's famous for all these roles, and then he gets into an accident that scars his face, and he can't act anymore because his face is all messed up. And then he finds this like it's like a product, it's like a facial cream that's supposed to be able to allow you to basically rearrange your face. And so he tries it, and it ends up like taking over his body, and he has like a psychotic breakdown, and he becomes this gigantic monster that's like made of clay. And I know it sounds stupid on the surface, like most superheroes actually do when you just say it out loud of what this thing is.
Right.
But
it's a billionaire who misses his parents.
Yeah, but that episode of the animated series is all the proof of concept you need to go, wow, they could make a really fantastic Clayface movie as a small character piece. This is not a universe-ending power threat, right? This is a street-level person who can change their appearance and has having a psychotic breakdown and engages in crime, right? And they happen to be a Batman villain too, so you could always do this character piece with them and then bring them back in some other capacity at a later date as needed, or it can just sort of live as this thing. The other thing that DC is still doing is, and maybe who knows if it's going to continue past the Matt Reeves Batman stuff, but all of the Matt Reeves Batman stuff, like the Penguin TV show and the
which I really liked.
I've heard it's fantastic. Those don't exist in the James Gunn DC universe, the central one. So they use the title called Elseworlds, which is a title that DC always used for, hey, we're going to publish comics that are from us, but they don't happen in that mainline continuity. And so there are all these opportunities for, hey, let's make this movie and we're just going to go wild with it. And it doesn't fit the mold of like our central continuity, but we think it's a movie worth making. This filmmaker has an idea for it and we want to see it, right? Like they're not stopped from doing that. Whereas Marvel's, all of their stuff sort of has to fit into, unless it's a what if story, has to sort of fit into that main continuity. Otherwise it becomes like a multiverse, it becomes a Spider-Man or Amazing Spider-Man movie.
I also, by the way,
I guess that's the exact same thing if I really think about it now. Elseworlds in the multiverse. It's just a different word for it.
I think the difference is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like Elseworlds don't really interact with the multiverse. Or they don't really interact with the main timeline as much as like Multiverse ended up interacting with the main timeline, right?
Probably, yeah.
And why wouldn't you want to do that, right? Like you could have 4 different artists working on 4 different comics and be like, yeah, that's just part of Elseworld, and it's an interesting story that wouldn't throw off the grand plan that we have.
I mean, that's how the comics have operated since their inception. Like you would have the X-Men series and Uncanny X-Men, and then you'd have these other titles that are a different alternate universe timeline, right? Or some other thing. And they would do this with Batman all the time and Spider-Man, where it doesn't have to be part of this grand continuity to be worth publishing.
Speaking of Batman, the animated series, I think an episode that should be the basis for one of the things that they do, and this could be, again, another street level villain, is I love what they did with Killer Croc in the animated series.
Yeah.
And specifically, there's an episode where he and Batman are fighting, and Batman like throws him into a river, and he is unconscious, and he floats down this river and pulls himself, out he's outside of Gotham, many, many miles away, and he's found by like a flipper boy. And it's members of a traveling freak show. And they're like, oh, well, you belong with us. We're your people. And they don't look at him like he's, odd. He has kind of found his place. And in a weird way, he reluctantly has to get back into a life of crime, but he had like found his place. That episode is out of this world good.
There's another one too that features Killer Croc that shows you that Batman, the character Batman, is not only a really good actor, but he's really fun. He's funny too, because there's one where a bunch of the villains are playing poker.
It's called Almost Got Him. I think actually it might be the best episode of that entire series.
It might be. And all these villains are, I think it's a Two-Face and Penguin and maybe Poison Ivy, and I forget who else is there. Killer Croc is there. And they're all sharing stories of the time they almost got Batman. And it comes around to Killer Croc. And he's like, yeah, one time I saw Batman like in this alleyway, so I threw a rock at him. And that was his story. That's the best he could come up with. And then it turns out, spoiler alert, that Killer Croc was actually Batman in disguise the entire time.
Yeah. Oh, it's and the look he gets from the other villains when he's like, I threw it, but he goes, it was a big rock.
That's right.
It's an out of this world. Like, it's such a fun, like, I'm surprised that Tim Story hasn't been given the reins to do something more with Batman.
Tim Story, or
is it Tim Story who did?
I thought Tim Story was the guy who directed the 2 Fantastic Four movies.
Oh, is that the same? Oh no,
that's Tim Story. I'm Tim. Shit, you're right. Bruce Timm.
Bruce Timm. There you go.
Bruce
Good
Timm.
man.
There we go. Yeah,
that would have been awkward.
I think Tim Story did a movie with Queen Latifah and one of the late night hosts, whatever his name is.
Taxi.
Yeah,
I saw that one.
We don't want to give Tim Story anything. We really don't.
But Bruce Timm, I think deserves a chance to get back into that playground because he really understood, like, especially for an era where we were just coming off of like the Tim Burton Batmans, that, like, I think he understands the rogues gallery of villains in Batman better than anybody else because he was able to have a sandbox that allowed him to use all. I mean, you had episodes with Egghead, and the Mad Hatter, and so why not just enjoy it, baby?
Well, he is a part of. He's one of the creators of the new Batman TV show, Batman Caped Crusader, and so and he's done a lot of character design work on it. So I would definitely suggest looking at the trailer for Batman Caped Crusader because it looks like the Bruce Timm art style, but then almost upgraded a bit. But it's still it's not the same. But it's got a lot of the Art Deco stuff to it, and it looks really, really cool. I always liked the fact that show made Gotham look like the 1920s on some level.
I really enjoyed if you like. And here's the thing, you know what DC does better than anyone else is animated stuff. Like their animated pieces, I think, rival Marvel like 2 to 1 when it comes to the amount of great stuff that they've put out, including the Harley Quinn series that came out. Like it's got the gal from The Big Bang Theory who voices Harley Quinn. And it's rated R. It's like an adult like thing, but it is funny. It is really funny. And then Alan Tudyk is doing the voice of Joker in this one. It's well worth your time. And speaking of time, we should wrap this one up because people are going like, oh my God, how much more could these nerds talk about? Tucker, have a super day. Thank you for doing this. I'm sick right now, so we're not even looking at each other in the same room. I'm going to go to the walk-in hospital now. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. It turns out I'm going to use pens. This pencil thing was stupid.